Begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Mem Daled Amud Beis, the new Peirik, the seventh Peirik of Masech Shavuos. Zok the Heilige Mishnah, Kol Hanishbon Shabbatayra. All those that swear Minatayra, and those are really three cases. The Meide B'Miktsas, one that admits partially a claim. The case of an Eid Echad, when an Eid Echad testifies that he owes the money. So if he wants to be exempt, he has to swear against the words of the Eid Echad. And a Shomer. For example, a Shemer Sachar that claims that an Einus happened for the object that he's guarding, and he's not responsible, so he has to swear that it was an Einus and it's not something that he is responsible for. Those are the three cases that you swear Minat Torah. So in all these, Nishban V'loy Mishalman, he swears in order to not pay. But there's no case Minat Torah where one swears and then has the power to collect and take out money from someone just with his swearing. However, ve'elu nishban v'neitlin. Here are cases that Chachamim instituted that one can swear, and with the power of his shvuah, he's able to collect money. Hasachir, a case regarding a hired worker, v'hanigzal, someone that was robbed from, v'hanechbal, someone that was injured, and v'shekenegdoi choshad al shvuah, in a case where the defendant is a person that can't swear to pater himself because he's suspected of lying. So in this case, the shvuah is transferred to the claimant, and he swears and collects the money. And the last example is v'chen v'ni al pankosei, a storekeeper that has records. He as well will be able to swear and collect his money. Now the Mishnah here will go on to explain what all these cases are. So the Mishnah Asacher, what's the case of the hired worker? Keitzad. So the worker says to the employer, Ten li schari, pay me for the work I did. Sheyesh li biyotcha, that you owe me. Now, Huaymer, and the employer says, Nesati, I paid you already. But V'hala, the worker says, Lo natalti, I never got any payments. So this is one of the cases that Chachamim instituted that Hu Nishba V'neitel. He can swear and collect his pay. Even though usually when you want to be Moitzi Mami, you have to bring proof, proper proof, which would be Eidim. In this case, though, he can swear and collect. And the Gemara will explain why this is. However, Rabbi Yehuda argues, Rabbi Yehuda says, and Rabbi Yehuda will argue on this case and in all other cases that the Mishnah will say here, Ad sheteheisha miktzeh seda. This that Chachamim instituted, that the worker can swear and collect, that's only if the case was that the balabas, the employer, was a meida b'miktzas. He partially admitted, and therefore he would really have to swear to pater himself. What would be the case? Keitzad, when the worker says, Ten li schari, Chamishim dinner sheyesh li biyadcha. Pay me 50 dinner that you owe me. And v'hu and the balabas answers and says, his kabalta dinner zav. I paid you half of that. I paid you a golden dinner, which is 25 dinner, or 25 silver dinner, that is. So he's a meida b'miktzas. In such a case, the balabas would have to swear to pater himself. And I tell you. And it's in here, in this case, as Rabbi Yehuda, that Chachamim instituted, instead of allowing the balabas to swear and pater himself, we transfer the shvuah to the worker, and the worker could swear to collect the money. But it has to be a case where initially, Minat Torah, there's a chiyuv shvuah of Meida b'Miktzas, and then Chachamim institute that we transfer the shvuah to the worker to collect. Now, the next case the Mishnah mentioned, Nigzal, a person that was robbed from, Keitzad, what's this case? If it was testified about an individual, he was a lender, and his borrower did not pay his loan, that he entered without permission into the borrower's house to take a collateral. Now, so now the borrower says, you stole from my vessels. And but the lender says, even though I went into your house without permission, but I didn't take anything. So in this case, Chachamim say that the borrower, the one that claims that he was robbed from, can swear and collect from this person that walked into his house. In this case as well, Rabbi Yehuda says, we only allow the person that was robbed from, or claims that he was robbed from, to swear if there was initially a meida b'miktzas here, that there would be a chiyuv shvuah minat Torah. Keitzad, what would be that case? If the borrower says, Shnei kelim nataltu, when you came into my house, you took 2 vessels. And the lender responds and is a meida b'miktzas, he said, no, lo natalti ela echad. I only took 1 vessel. So in this case, usually the lender would swear to pater himself. And here Chachamim instituted that the borrower, that is the one that claims that he was robbed from, and this person just walked into his house without permission, he can swear to collect that 2 kalim that he said he stole from him. The third case, where one swears and just with the shvuah he's able to collect money. Nachbal, a person that was injured. Keitzat, so what's this case? If there are Eidim that testify that this person came into this other person's domain, he was whole, healthy, and he came out from him where he was bruised up. Now, and this person claims, you're the one that bruised me. You have to pay me whatever it is for the harm that you caused me. But this person says, no, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. So we have a very strong grounds over here that he did do it, even though we don't have clear edim. Here as well, that the one that was injured can swear that it's this person that injured him, and he collects whatever money payments he deserves. Here as well, Rabbi Yehuda says, we only allow the person that was injured to swear if it's a case of a meidim mikzas, that the one that's being accused of injuring him was a meidim mikzas. How? Keitzat amalei chabalta bi shtayim. The person that was injured says, you injured me in 2 places, 2 injuries, and he admits partially, he says, no, there was only 1 injury that I caused. So here in this case, since he's a meidim mikzas, and he would be chayav shvuah to be exempt of paying, so Chachamim say that we transfer the shvuah to the one that was injured to swear to collect. The next case the Mishnah mentioned was shekenegdoi chashad al shvuah. In a case where there's the claimant and the defendant, and usually the defendant swears to pater himself, but he can't swear because he's suspected of swearing falsely. Now, what is the suspicion? What's the case here? Keitzat achas shvuas ha'edos, whether the one that is suspected of swearing falsely is because he previously swore falsely regarding a testimony, that he swore that he doesn't know testimony and it turns out that he did know, or whether he swore falsely regarding a deposit that he had in his possession, or even if he swore falsely just in vain, he swore about something that is a stone, he swore that it's a piece of gold. This is something which is not an aveda ben adam lachaveda, it's just an aveda ben adam lamokin, but he still becomes puzzle. So in all these cases, he can't swear, this defendant can't swear, and instead we transfer the shvuah to the claimant, and he can swear and collect the money that he's claiming. Other cases where a person cannot swear and is not trusted to swear, if one of them, or the defendant, is a person that gambles, he plays with a dice, a client gambles, or malva beribis, he lends with interest, he makes these races with birds, whoever wins the race gets the money, also a kind of gambling, or he does business with the produce of Shemitah, which is not allowed, so he's not trusted to swear, and so in these cases as well, so the claimant, which is in the din Torah against him, he will then be able to swear and collect his money. Now, what happens if the case is hoyu shneim chashudim? If these are 2 people under the din Torah and they're both not tzaddikim, the defendant can't swear, he's suspected of lying, but the claimant can't swear either, he's also suspected of lying. So now, chazra hashvua l'mekayma. The obligation of swearing goes back to its original place, which is by the defendant. Divrei Rabbi Yosi, this is Rabbi Yosi's opinion. And the Gemara will explain what happens then, because he can't actually swear. Rav Meir says in such a case, yachleiku. They will split the money that they're arguing about. Okay, the next case, or the last case that the Mishnah mentioned, where one swears, and with the power of the shul, he's able to collect money. The storekeeper with his ledger or with his records. Keitzad, what's the case that a storekeeper can collect money? So the Mishnah first clarifies, it's not simply speaking about a case where a storekeeper turns to a person that is his customer and says, you owe me this and this amount of money. That would not, just because he says you owe me this and this amount of money, or he has it written on his records, that wouldn't give him the ability to swear and to collect it. That's not the case here. So what is the case? Or rather the case is, a person, a balabas, a customer, comes and tells a storekeeper, ten lebni, or lebanai, sasayim chitin. Give my son 2 sa'ah of wheat. Or it says to him, 10 lepayali, give my worker that I owe money, so pay him, give him selamois. Give him a sela, a worth of sela in money, in change of money that you have. And then the balabas, this employer that hired this worker, says, I'll pay you back for this. So now what happens? Hu aimer, the storekeeper that it says, Nasati, I did what you said, I paid your worker. Now reimburse me for this. But the worker says, or the son that he was supposed to give this wheat to him says, they say, no, we did not receive anything from the storekeeper. Now, what is the position of the balabas? He doesn't know. He says, well, maybe you did pay. So the worker comes to the balabas and says, pay me for the work I did for you. He says, well, didn't the storekeeper pay you? And the storekeeper comes to the balabas and says, pay me for this that I paid your worker. But he says, well, the worker says you never got paid. So this person, the balabas himself, really doesn't know anything. So in such a case, the halacha is that this balabas now will lose out. Because hunish bavanoitel, the storekeeper can come and swear that he actually did pay this worker, and therefore he's now collecting money from the balabas. And the heinish bavanoitel, and then the workers that were supposed to get paid could also come and swear that we never got paid from this storekeeper, and they are going to take their payment now from the balabas. So the balabas is going to have to end up paying twice. Okay, so this case is actually a very unique case. Simply, you may think that there's a simple solution here. If the balabas himself doesn't really know what happened, and it's really the argument is between the storekeeper and the worker, so let them fight it out between each other. Let them come to a din Torah, and one could swear to the other. And why make the balabas pay twice? But that doesn't work, as the Rishonim explained. The Gemara actually explains this, and the Rishonim speak about this, that in such a case, they're not in a din Torah with each other. The storekeeper says, I don't know who these workers are. I don't trust the workers' Shavuos. And the workers say, I don't know who this worker, this storekeeper is. I never worked for the storekeeper. I worked for the balabas. I'm not going to trust the storekeeper that's going to come to Bezdin and swear that he paid me. I don't trust him. They can't go to the din Torah with each other. So therefore the din Torah has to all be with the balabas, which was the one that hired the worker, and the one that appointed the storekeeper to pay now this worker. But now the thing is, the balabas himself doesn't know. So what would be the halacha min Torah in such a case if the balabas doesn't know? The halacha would be that if the balabas doesn't know, so he has a tiny shema, he doesn't know, and the storekeeper is coming with a tiny buddy, I know for a fact that you owe me this money, or the workers are coming with also the tiny buddy that you owe them the money, so suddenly he would have to pay. If you hold body v'shema body adif, or if you hold body v'shema lav body adif, then you would be patur of pay. You wouldn't have to pay. There is though a distinction between the storekeeper and the worker, because in the case of the worker, he definitely owed him the money. The question is whether it was paid up. By the storekeeper, it's less than that. It's not even sure b'chlal that he owes him the money, because it's possible that the storekeeper never actually paid these workers. So the halachas could be different, whether this balabas is chayiv to pay the worker or the storekeeper. However, midrabanan, the Chachamim instituted that they can both come and swear to this balabas. The Chenveni and the Payalim come and swear to him. The Chenveni swears that he paid. The workers swear that they never got the money, and he's going to have to pay both of them. Now, Amar Ben Nanas, on this Ben Nanas says, Keitzat, how can we allow this? Elu ve'elu bam, they Shavuos shav. If they're both swearing, so then somebody is swearing falsely here. So we can't institute that they both swear. Ella hu noitel shaloi b'shvuah, and v'hei noitel shaloi b'shvuah. They both can come and collect from this balabas even without swearing. They each are coming with a tainis body that he owes them the money, so each of them come and collect with even without any shvuah. Another case, a person says to a storekeeper, he walks into a store to buy produce. So he says to the storekeeper, Tenli bedinner peiris, give me for the worth of a dinner produce. And he gave him the peiris. After he gives him the produce, Amaloi, he says to this person, dinner, pay me this dinner. Amaloi, so the customer says, Nasativlach, I paid you the dinner already. And venasate bompeli, you put that dinner that I paid you into your pouch. So what happens in such a case? He denies, I don't owe you a penny, I just paid you. In this case, Yishava balabayis, shenasan le'is dinner. The balabas, the customer, is going to swear that he paid, and it'll be pater. But he has to swear, and then it'll be pater. Now, if the case is the opposite, if the customer says, give me fruits, and the storekeeper says, I already gave you the fruits. In other words, he paid him the dinner, and now he says, okay, I paid you the dinner, give me the fruits, or the produce. And the storekeeper says, I gave you the produce. And you already took the fruits, you brought them home already. So in this case, the storekeeper swears that he already gave him the fruits, and it'll be potter. Now, Rabbi Yehuda argues regarding the first case of this story here, and he says, Kol sha'perish biyadai, the one that has the fruits in his hands, yadai al yaina, he has the upper hand. So in the first case over here, where the customer already got the fruits, he's not going to have to swear to pater himself, because it's assumed that he already paid, because a storekeeper would not give the produce to this person, to the customer, unless he already got paid. So therefore, if he claims that he already paid the dinner, he's pater, without even swearing at all. The Mishnah here brings another case, which is basically the same point, with a money changer. A person says to a money changer, "Tenli b'dinner mois, give me change for a silver dinner, give me copper coins." And he gave him the coins, the change. Amaloi, so now the money changer says, "Tenli as a dinner, so give me the silver dinner." Amaloi, and the customer says, "Nesativ lach, I gave you the silver dinner, but nesati ba'um pali, and you already put it into your pouch." So here as well, Yishava balabayis, that nasan le as a dinner. The customer swears that he gave him the dinner, and it'll be pater. Amaloi tenli as amois, but if the case is the opposite, that he says the customer gave the silver dinner to this money changer, and now he says, "So give me the change." And Amaloi, and the money changer says, I gave you the change already. You already threw it into your wallet. So in this case, Yishav Shulchani, the money changer swears that he already gave him the change, and it'll be pater. Rabbi Yehuda argues again on the first case of the story here, and he says, Ein derech shulchani lipton iser. A shulchani, a money changer, does not give the change. In this case, it's an example of an iser. Dinner, until he still first gets the larger coin that he's giving change for. So he doesn't have to swear to pater himself, but because it's assumed that he the balabas, it's assumed that he already gave the dinner. Now, these two cases here that we just learned is really a case of a kaifer hakol. In all of these cases, the one that's denying that he owes anything, he's denying it all. Now, by kaifer hakol, you're usually pater of a shvuah. This case here is very similar to what we learned before, the concept of a Shavuos Heses. The Chachamim instituted that not only when you admit partially that you swear, but even when you're a Kaifer HaKayil, you have to swear as well. However, that halacha of Shavuos Heses that was brought before in the Gemara, the name of Rav Nachman, that was instituted Bizman HaGemara, that any Kaifer HaKayil has to swear. Here, it's speaking specifically about in a store, whether by a money changer or by someone that's selling produce in a store. Over here, this is something which is more common, that even Bizman HaMishnah, they already instituted that you would have to swear even in a case of a Kaifer HaKayil. Okay, the Mishnah continues with another halacha. Kishem she'amru, just as it was said in the following cases, where a person seemingly has evidence that money is owed to him, but nevertheless he still has to swear. And what are these cases? There's a list here of cases. Number one, hapegemes kisubasa oitifrela b'shvuah. A woman that's coming to collect her ksubah, and the ksubah is, let's say, the 200 zuz that she has to collect, and she admits that she was paid partially already. So she's being pagan. She's downgrading the power of the proof of her ksubah by saying that she was already partially paid. So in such a case, the halacha is that she must swear before she collects with this kind of a document. And also another case where it was said that you must swear before you collect. The eid echad me'ida shehi prua. She has a ksubah, but there's one witness that comes and testified that she was already paid. So le'tifra ela b'shvuah. In both of these cases, she must make a shvuah before she pays, or before she gets paid, that is. And similarly, if a person is coming to collect from properties that are not a lender, he's coming to collect a loan from properties that are not in the possession of the borrower anymore, it was sold off already to someone. Or a menichse yisaimim, he's coming to collect from properties from the borrower that died, and now it's in the possession of the yisaimim. So in this case as well, he has to first swear to prove that the money is owed to him. And also additionally, another case that was said, even if you have a proof, you still have to swear if you're collecting a loan, or if you're collecting the payment of the ksubah. The case here, for example, is the husband is overseas, he sends a get to his wife from overseas, and now she wants to get the payment of her ksubah, not in front of the husband, she must first swear before she collects. The man's not here to explain himself, so she first has to swear before she collects. So just like this is all said, so too the halacha is hayisaimim. If it's orphans that are coming to collect the loan, in these cases, lo yifrel b'shvua, they as well must swear before they come to collect. So, for example, yisaimim that are coming to collect from other yisaimim, that they say that your father borrowed money from our father, they're going to have to first swear before they collect. What kind of a shvua do they have to swear? Shvua shaloi pakadnu abba. They swear that our father never told us that he got paid from this already. Our father didn't tell us anything about this loan before he passed away. And we didn't find any receipt or any documentation amongst our father's papers that this star that we have was already paid up. And that only then do these Yisayimim get paid. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka says this applies even if it's a son that was born after the father passed away, so they couldn't have had a conversation with the father about it. The son couldn't have a conversation with the father about this. But he still has to swear that he didn't find any documentation amongst the father's papers that this was already paid up. Now, Rab Shimon Gamliel says, Im yesh edim, if there are witnesses, that the father of the one that these Yisayimim are claiming that he owes money. So if there's edim that say that the father said before he passed away that shtar zeh eine perua, that this shtar is not paid up, then so then the yasim, the orphan, can come and collect without any shvua because edim are clearly saying that the father already clarified before he passed away that it was not paid up. Another halacha the Mishnah says, "Ve'elu nishbain shaloi b'taina." The following are cases where a person has to swear even if there isn't a definite claim against him. Ashutfim, in the case of partners where there's an argument between them, one partner is accusing the other that I'm suspicious that you may have stolen from me, and the same v'harisin regarding workers that were hired, v'ar petrupin, or managers, caretakers, v'isha anesas v'nesanes v'secha bayis, or a wife or woman that is managing a business, a store of the house, and there's a suspicion against her. Uben habayis, or there's brothers that inherit an estate, and there's one brother, there's one ben habayis that's taking care, and there's a suspicion on him. So amaloi mata toineni. So this one individual, the brother or whoever it is, says, "What claim do you have against me?" And what's said is, "Ritzaini shetishpali." I don't know for sure that you stole, but there's a suspicion on you. And I want that you should swear that you didn't take anything. So even though there's no tainus body against this individual, in these kind of cases, chayiv is going to have to swear. However, cholko ashutfin v'harisin, if the partner split or the workers are not working anymore, then any yochalash biyoi, he can't have him swear about what happened before when they were partners or when he was a worker. If there was a shvua that he's chayiv to swear for some other reason, then megalgal and all of us akel. Then, as the halacha of gilgul shvua, they'll make him swear on this other case as well, even though there's no tainus body on that other case as well. Now, the final halacha of the Mishnah, v'hashvius mishametes es hashvua. Shmita, just like it absolves the payment of a loan, it also absolves the obligation to swear regarding a loan. Okay, so the Gemara now begins with the first halacha of the Mishnah. Anytime in a Torah one has to swear, he's only swearing to be exempt of paying, not to swear to collect. Minala, what's the source for this? The Al Makra, because the pasuk where it speaks about the shvua, it says v'lokach ba'olav v'lo yishalem, that he will take and he will not have to pay, which means misha olav l'shalem lo shvua. The one that he would have to pay, he is the one that when he swears to back up his claim, then he will not have to pay. So that's what the Shvuah Minat Torah accomplishes, to pater you from paying. But there's no such a thing Minat Torah that you can swear and be Moitzi Mammon and collect money with a Shvuah. Now, so what did the Mishnah say? The first case where one Chachamim instituted that he could swear and collect with his Shvuah, the worker. If there's an argument between an employer and an employee, the worker can swear and collect his money. Says the Gemara, what is unique about a worker that Chachamim instituted that he can swear and collect his pay? These are great halachas that are taught here. So it sounds like he's saying that this is like a halacha l'meisha misinai. So the Gemara asks on this, halachis, how could you say that this is hani hilchasanin? You're using the expression that this is halachis, this is some kind of a halacha that is halacha l'meisha misinai. It's not. This is something that Chachamim instituted. So rather, what Shmuel said is, takana is gedai l'shonukan. This is a great institution that was instituted for the benefit of the worker. So if the Gemara is medayik, what does it mean? Takana is gedai. It's gedailis meklal deika kepanis. This is something that was a great matter that they instituted in this. Does that mean that there's other matters that they instituted that are smaller matters? So what is this expression of takana is gedailis? What he said was that this is very strong and firm institutions that Chachamim instituted, that it should be kept this way. And what did Chachamim do? Akrua Rabbanan l'shvua mi balabayis. Chachamim uprooted the right of the balabas to swear if he were a meideh b'miktzas. So it would be him that would swear to pater himself of paying his worker. And instead they instituted v'shadyua asachir. And they placed the shvua on the worker, meaning that he has the right and the ability to swear and collect the payment of his loan. And what's the reason for this? Mishom kidei chayav, because this pay for the work that he's doing is his livelihood. So therefore Chachamim instituted it for his behalf, for his livelihood. But somebody Gemara asks in this, Mishom kidei chayav desachir, kansinale labalabayis, because of the livelihood of the worker. So now there's a penalty for the balabas. If there's no proper foundation for no basis for the claim of the worker that he did not get paid yet, so you're saying, it's his livelihood. And so because of this is a penalty for the balabas. Says the Gemara, balabais gufei. No, this is actually for the benefit of the balabas himself. He's happy about this. Nichale the mishtaba sachir. He's happy that we're giving the rights to the worker to swear to collect his pay, v'shokal, and he takes. So in order that workers should be available and be ready to be hired. If you're going to say that a worker can't just swear and collect, so then workers will be very doubtful whether they should be hired, because they're going to be afraid what's going to happen when it comes to the time of payment, and we're not going to be trusted that we weren't paid yet. So therefore the balabas is happy that we're giving this right to swear and collect for the workers. Says the Gemara, well, Adarabba, you could say on the contrary. Sachir, the workers would be happy if we give the right to the balabas to swear to pater himself of paying, in order that they should have employers that should be interested in hiring them. If the balabas thinks that he'll be stuck in paying a second time, then they won't want to hire any workers. So the workers also are interested in being hired. Says the Gemara, no, balabayis al korchei agar. The balabas, which needs the work done, he's going to have to hire the workers either way, because he just needs the work done. So there's no reason to have this special takana for the balabas to swear to be able to pater himself of paying. Says the Gemara, if so, sachir nami, the workers as well, al karchem mizgar. Against their will, they will be ready to be hired because they have to make a living somehow. So even if they think that there's a risk involved, that they may not be able to get paid later on, but either way, they're going to end up being hired because of they have to make a living. So therefore the Gemara takes back this pshat that it tried to say here, that this was instituted for the benefit of the worker because it's his livelihood. That can't be the reason. So what's the reason why we give the worker the upper hand that he can come and swear and collect from the balabas? All of the answer is balabayis torad b'payalov. An employer that hires many workers, he can be busy with paying different workers. And therefore, he could forget and think that I paid one worker, and really he paid a different worker. So therefore, the sachir that says that he wasn't paid yet, and it's just him. So he is trusted with his shvua to get his payment. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, v'leisav le'beloi shvua. So then we should trust the worker, that it's just him and he knows that he wasn't paid, that the balabas is busy with more than one worker, so why wouldn't we trust the worker without swearing at all? And says the Gemara, Kedei lahafiz daita shel balabais. No, he does have to swear in order to appease the balabas, because if not, the balabas is always going to walk around thinking that I paid this worker a second time, and he's not going to realize that it was a different worker that he paid. So like this, what happens is we tell the worker to swear. When the balabas sees that this worker is ready to swear that he didn't get paid yet, he thinks it over and he realizes that it's probably true that this worker never got paid yet. Okay, but the Gemara asks, there's another solution to this. Why wouldn't we institute that a employer must pay his workers in front of Eidim? And then if you're going to want to claim that you paid, you're going to have to produce those Eidim. And if you paid without Eidim, then that's your problem. Then you're going to have to pay a second time. So why wouldn't we institute this instead of instituting and giving the ability to the worker to swear and collect? Says the Gemara, this is too much of a hassle. If every time he has to pay every one of his workers, he has to bring 2 witnesses for this and find 2 kosher Eidim, it's too much of a hassle. Chacham didn't institute this. So the Gemara asks, there's another solution. Why wouldn't we just institute that the worker has to be paid in advance, so there won't be any fights about this later? Says the Gemara, that's not a solution. Shneim reitzim ba'kofa. Both the employer and the worker are interested to wait that he should be paid after the work is done. The balabas doesn't necessarily have the money yet at this point, and the worker as well doesn't want to be paid in the beginning of the job because then he may use up his money. He wants to get paid later at the end of the work so he can bring the money home to his family. This is the reason why we trust the worker and not the balabas. So the point here is the balabas has many workers, so he can forget who he paid, but the worker remembers that he did not get paid, so we trust him if he swears to collect his payment. So I'm going to now ask, if this is the case that the worker is more trustworthy, so even if the argument between the employer and the employee is regarding what amount of money did they make up that he should be paid, we should also trust the worker for this. So, why did we learn in Abraisa? If the craftsman, the worker says, we made up, you'll pay me 2. And the employer or the balabas that gave him something to fix for him says, I only made up, I'll pay you 1. What's the halacha in this case? That he's going to have to bring a raya. Right, in this case, actually, is a Maida b'miktsas, so you would have to swear the Shavuos of Maida b'miktsas. But over here, we don't give the worker the upper hand that he could just swear that he's right, that it was 2, and he can collect. Why don't we say that here as well? Maybe the balabas confuses with what he made up with one worker with another worker, but the worker himself remembers better. So what wouldn't we give him the upper hand here as well? Says the Gemara, this is different. The actual price that was made up, this is something that the balabas remembers what the price was. Who he paid, he can get confused, one worker or another worker, but the price, that's something he remembers. Now, but if we're saying the point there is that the worker is always more trusted because he's the only one that's asking for himself, whereas the balabas, he has more than one worker, so he's confused. So if that's the svara, afila ovar zmanai nami, even if the argument between the employer and the worker is after the time of payment came, the worker should still have the upper hand for this reason. Now, Allah Tanya, or Tanan, why did we learn in a Braisa or in a Mishnah where it says, ovar zmanai, if it's already after the time of payment came, and the worker still claims that he wasn't paid, over here, here we do not give the worker this right, this upper hand that he could just swear and collect. And the reason is because there's a presumption, there's a chazaka that the balabas will not be over on the lav of paying after the time that he's supposed to pay. Baltolen, you're not allowed to pay in the next day, and therefore we assume that he did pay. It's already after the time of payment. But the question is, didn't you say that the balabas, it's not that he didn't want to pay, but he just has many workers, so he's busy. So he may have forgotten to pay. So we still should give the worker the upper hand that he's trusted that he wasn't paid yet. So the Gemara answers, no. Before it comes the time that he's obligated to pay, so then he could forget and not realize who it is that he paid. But kimati zman chiyuve, when the time that was set and he has an obligation to pay already arrived, Rami anavshei umitka. This is something that's important to him, and he remembers exactly who it is that he paid, because over here, if he's not going to pay on time, he's being over on this lav. This is something that he remembers. Wait a minute. Just like he's saying the balabas remembers it's important to him because he's being over on a lav if he doesn't pay on time. But for the worker that says he wasn't paid yet, it's also something that he knows and he's saying it for certain. Well, if you think that he's claiming that he wants to be paid a second time, does that mean that we're thinking that he would want to rob? So just like you're saying the balabas is knows and he remembers he doesn't want to be over in the lav of baltolin, the worker who wouldn't want to be over on the lav of stealing and asking for payment a second time. Says the Gemara, Gabi Balabayis, Iketrei Chazaki. You're right, there is a svara chazaka to say that the worker would not ask to be paid a second time, but the Balabas in this case still has the upper hand, because there's 2 reasons to believe that he did already pay. What are they? Chade, as we mentioned, that there's an assumption that the balabas, the employer, would not be over on baltalin to pay after the time. And but then there's another point as well. The ein sacher mashis chade. A worker would not wait till past this time to get paid. The worker probably demanded his pay in time. So therefore, there's an assumption that he actually did get paid already. There's two assumptions that he did get paid, and therefore, in this case, the sacher does not have the upper hand. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel about this halacha that the worker has the upper hand, that he can come and swear and collect. Lo yishana, when was that learned? Ela shesacher be'edim. If there are witnesses that he actually hired him, that he was his worker. Aval sacher shaloi be'edim. If he's a worker that was hired without any witnesses that are testifying that he was a worker, so then the worker does not have the upper hand. Because since the employer could have just come and denied the whole thing. He could have come and said, I never hired you at all. He can come and say, I hired you, but I already paid you. So he has a migu. He has this. The migu is always the concept that proves us that he's trustworthy. So therefore, in this case, the worker will not have the upper hand, that he can just swear and collect. Rabbi Yitzchak said, what Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel, Yasher, that this is good, this is true. And Rabbi Yochanan said the same thing. Now the Gemara says, Meklal, if he only quoted this in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, does that mean the Palagalei Reish Lakish? That he's specifically saying Rabbi Yochanan said this, but not Reish Lakish, even though Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish were always together, and many times they actually argued with each other, and here he's quoting only Rabbi Yochanan, so it sounds like Reish Lakish argues in this. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Some say that when Rabbi Yochanan was teaching this, Reish Lakish was drinking, and therefore he was quiet, and he didn't respond, and then by the time Reish Lakish was able to talk, Rabbi Yitzchak was gone, so he didn't hear what Reish Lakish said. Or that Reish Lakish was quiet while Rabbi Yochanan was still talking, and then Rabbi Yitzchak walked out and he didn't hear what Reish Lakish said. Now, Itmanami, we also learned that Omar of Menashe, Bazvid, Omar Rav, that they said in the name of Rav as well, like Shmuel, that Lo Yishonu El Shesachroi Be'edim. The halacha that the sacher, the worker, has the upper hand is only if there's Edim, that he was hired for this work. But if there's no Edim that he was a worker, so then the Balabas has the upper hand. You could say that I never hired you at all. So he's not saying this. He has a migu. He's more trustworthy. He could say that I hired you and I paid you. So the Gemara says on this halacha that both now we see Shmuel, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rav said, Omar, Rami Bachomer said, Kama ma'al yahoshmaita. How great is this halacha? That in such a case that there's a migu, then this halacha that the sacher has the upper hand would not apply. So now the Gemara says in this, Amalei Rave, so Rave says about this, my mal yisa. What's so great about this halacha that was taught here? Because if you're going to say this idea here that you have a migu, and therefore in this case the sacher does not have the upper hand, imkein shvuas shemrim, the chayev rachmana, the halacha of a shemer that has to swear, that the Torah obligates him to swear. What's the case of a shemer that has to swear? So a typical case of the shemer is a shemer sachar, he's a paid shemer, and he's only responsible for a gneva and aveda, but he comes and claims that there's a einus, something that was completely out of his control happened, and he has to swear that that's the case, and he's not responsible. So why would the shemer have to swear that that's the case? How would this be possible? But this shemer though has a migu. He has something that's very clear that he's trustworthy in this case. Why? Because the shemer could simply have turned to the owner that's claiming that he has a deposit for him and say, this never happened. There was no Adam that I ever took this, it never happened. So he can now come and should be believed to say that it was something out of his control happened and therefore he's pater. Why should he have to swear for this? Okay, so what's really the point that Rav is trying to say? According to some Rishonim, this is a famous Rima Gash that proves from this Gemara, the point that Rav is trying to say, this concept of migu is not used in such a kind of a case where you're using the migu to pater you of an obligation to swear. Migu can be used when there's a question whether you owe money or not, but not to pater you of a chiyav shvua. That's one pshat, that's the Rima Gash's pshat. Other Rishonim say, this kind of migu doesn't work because this is what's called a migu de ha'aza, where the better taina you could have said, which is pretty simple to pati yourself, but it takes a lot of chutzpah to say that kind of taina, that's no migu. Because if it's a more chutzpah taina, the whole concept of the migu is, had I been a liar, I would have said the better lie. No, but you're afraid to say the better lie. It's just too much of a chutzpah, so it doesn't really prove anything. That's the point that Rav is arguing here. But the Gemara answers that you can't ask this, because I'll tell you, the case where this Shomer will be obligated to swear is because there is no migu, because there's Adam that this pekadon was given to him, so he had no migu to say that he never got it. Well, no, but now the Gemara still asks, but there's still a question over here. But there's still a migu, because he still could come and say that I returned it. Yes, there's Adam that I got this pekadon, but I returned it, and I'll be believed to say that I returned it. Why? Because why shouldn't he be believed? Even if there's Adam that he got it, but he doesn't have to return it with Adam, as the Gemara is soon going to clarify. It's not so. If it's not necessary to return it with Adam, so he would be believed to say that he returned it, and so therefore he should not be believed to say that Nansu, that there was an aynus that happened. So he still has the migu, even if there's Adam that he got this pekadon. So the Gemara answers, no, the case here is that afked le b'shtora. When does the Torah say that a shomer has to swear? When there's a shtar, when the owner is coming with a shtar that I gave you this deposit, this thing to keep for me. In such a case, he can't say he returned it, because if you actually returned it, why didn't you take the shtar back? That proves that he didn't return it yet. Elamai, you say there was an aynus. On this, the Torah obligates him to swear that there was an aynus. Now, the Gemara parenthetically points out the point that I mentioned before, that Miklal, it's clear from here, the Tarvayu Svirulahu, both Rav and Rami Bachama that are having this discussion, they both hold that that if you give a deposit to someone, even if there's witnesses that you gave this deposit, it's not necessary to return it with Adam. And therefore, there was still the argument here that he could claim Echzarti, that he returned it even without Adam. However, if it's b'shtar, if you gave a deposit with a document, then tzarich lachzalei be'edem. Then you're going to have to return it with edem, because otherwise, if the owner still has the shtar in his possession, it proves that you didn't return it. Now, the Gemara says, Kari Rami Bar Chama led Rav Sheshes. Rami Bar Chama said about Rav Sheshes that was examining this halacha that we're learning here, that Shmuel said, that Rav said. So you read on him this pasuk, Vayasam David es hadvarim eila b'libo, that David placed these words on his heart, meaning because he was really looking for a source for this halacha that Rav and Shmuel said. The Ashkechei Rav Sheshes, and then Rav Sheshes found Rabbi Bar Shmuel. He found Rabbi Bar Shmuel, and Amalei says to Rabbi Bar Shmuel, Tani mar midi b'sacher. Did you learn any halacha regarding the halachas of a worker? Because he wanted to see if he could learn a braisa that he could prove the point that Rav and Shmuel said. Amalei, so Rabbi Bar Shmuel answered him in, yes, Tanina, I learned the following braisa. Sachir, a worker that claims that he didn't get paid yet, bismanoi, if it's within the time period before the time of payment came, so then as we learned before, nishba v'noitel, he swears and collects. Ketzad bisman she'amalei schartani, ketzad bisman, that is, what does it mean in the time? She'amalei schartani v'lei nasata li schari. The worker says to the employer, you hired me and you didn't pay me yet. And the worker says, the employer that is says, no, I hired you, but I paid you already. So over here, in this case, because it's before the time of payment, the worker swears and collects. Aval, however, if the argument between the employer and the worker is that the worker says that we made up that you're paying me two, and the employer says, no, we only made up that I'm paying you one. In such a case, if he wants to get paid the full amount, he's going to have to bring a raya for this. So now what do we see over here? Says the Gemara, so Rav Sheshes tried to prove from here, in the Seifa it's saying that if he would want to get paid too, he would have to have Eidim that were there when they made the deal, when he hired him, and then he has a raya that he could get paid too. So that's in the Seifa. So the Seifa that is his raya. So Reisha B'loi Raya, it sounds like that in the first case of this Braisa, where there's an argument whether he paid him yet or not, it's a case where there's no Raya, meaning that there's no Eidim at all. And that means also that there's no Eidim that he was hired. And it's here, in this case, where even though there's no Eidim at all, and if Solachayra, the Balabas, has a Migu, The employer has a miga that he could have said he never hired him, and nevertheless, it's saying over here that the worker does have the ability to swear and collect. So this is a question on what Rav and Shmuel said. On this, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and Nachman Yitzchak answered and said, no, it's not a question. Reisha, v'seifa, b'raya, both. In the first part of this brayse and the second part of the brayse, it's a case where there's a raya. Just like in the second case of the brayse, it's saying that there's a raya. If he wants to get paid the two that he claims that was made up, in the Reisha, there has to be at least Eidim that he was hired as a worker. Why doesn't it mention in the Reisha though? Because Raya de L'Shalin Katani. In the Sefer where it's saying that you need a Raya to actually get paid that too, that's the kind of Raya that the Brisa mentions. Raya de Shavuos like Katani. The Raya that's needed in the Reisha that will not give you the ability to collect. It'll give you the ability not to swear and then collect. That raya the Brisa does not mention. It's just mentioning the fact that you'll have to swear. But really, even there, you would have to have Eidim that you were a worker. Because otherwise, like Rav and Shmuel and Rav Yechanan all said, the Balabas would have a migu, and therefore he would have the upper hand.